Somewhere in medieval Europe, in the late 14th century, a cold wind moves through a quiet village. The year is 1348. Across the continent, death travels silently along trade roads and sea routes. The plague, what historians would later call the Black Death, spreads from town to town. Entire families disappear within days. Church bells ring so often that villagers stop counting the funerals. But tonight, in a small wooden house at the edge of the village, something unusual is happening. A child is celebrating his birthday. The house is dimly lit by 3 small candles stuck into a round honey cake. Their flames flicker gently, dancing in the quiet darkness of the room. The boy sits at the table. His eyes glow with excitement. His mother stands behind him, but she is not smiling. Instead, she watches the candles with something closer to fear. Because in the world she grew up in, birthdays were not always joyful. In fact, many people believed the anniversary of your birth was the most dangerous day of the year. Not because of illness, not because of bad luck, but because on that day, the spiritual barrier protecting a person's soul was believed to weaken. Medieval folklore whispered that spirits could see you more clearly on the day you were born. Witches could sense your presence, demons could follow your fate, and the devil himself knew exactly when you entered the world. To modern people, this idea may sound strange. Today, birthdays mean celebration, friends, cake, candles, a moment of happiness surrounded by people who care about you. But centuries ago, the meaning of a birthday was something entirely different. It was a moment of cosmic significance, a moment when the heavens had once aligned to create a life. And every year when that day returned, some believed the same cosmic forces stirred again. But not all forces in the medieval universe were believed to be good. Tonight, we explore one of the strangest and darkest beliefs from the history of superstition, the idea that your birthday could attract demons. To understand why birthdays once frightened people, we have to step into the mindset of the medieval world. Life in the Middle Ages was shaped by forces people could not see and rarely understood. Disease appeared without warning. Storms destroyed crops overnight. Children sometimes died within days of being born. To survive in such an unpredictable world, people searched for patterns. They looked to the heavens. The stars above them seemed permanent and ordered, unlike the chaotic world below. So many believed that the position of the stars at the moment of birth determined the path of a person's life. This belief, known as astrology, had existed for thousands of years before the medieval period. Civilizations such as ancient Babylon and ancient Egypt carefully recorded the positions of planets and stars. They believed celestial movements influenced human destiny. The idea eventually spread across the Mediterranean world. Greek scholars developed complex systems connecting personality, fate, and cosmic alignment. By the time Europe entered the Middle Ages, the belief had already become deeply embedded in culture. Astrologers calculated birth charts based on the exact moment a person entered the world. The rising constellation, the movement of planets, the location of the moon, all of these elements were believed to leave a permanent mark on the newborn soul. But there was another side to this belief, a darker interpretation. Some theologians feared that astrology suggested something dangerous. If the stars controlled human destiny, then perhaps those stars could be influenced by forces other than God. Medieval demonology warned that demons might manipulate celestial signs, which meant the moment of birth, the moment when the stars stamped their pattern upon a soul, could also become a moment of vulnerability. In this worldview, a newborn child was not simply a baby, it was a soul entering a cosmic battlefield. Invisible forces surrounded every human life. Angels, demons, spiritual powers constantly struggling for influence. And the moment of birth determined how that struggle might unfold. But an even stranger belief slowly grew from these ideas, a belief that the anniversary of your birth recreated the same cosmic alignment. Every year, the same date, the same stars returning to their positions, and if those forces had shaped your destiny once, then perhaps they awakened again every time your birthday returned. To many medieval people, this meant birthdays were not ordinary days, they were spiritual anniversaries, moments when the original cosmic pattern of your life briefly reopened. Some believed angels watched more closely on those days, but others feared that darker forces might be watching as well. And if demons could influence fate, then your birthday might become the moment when they could reach you most easily. This belief spread quietly through folklore, not always written in official texts, but whispered in villages, passed between generations, a warning hidden inside celebration. The day you were born might also be the day the unseen world remembered you. And centuries later, that fear would grow into something far more dangerous. Because in the late medieval period, Europe entered an age when fear of witches and demons would spiral out of control. An age when people truly believed that magic could harm them. An age when knowing the wrong secret, like someone's birthday, might be enough to accuse them of witchcraft. And that is where our story goes next. By the late Middle Ages, fear of witchcraft had spread across much of Europe. Natural disasters, plagues, failed harvests, unexplained illness. People desperately searched for someone to blame, and increasingly that blame fell on individuals accused of practicing dark magic. Witches, according to medieval belief, possessed secret knowledge about the hidden forces of the universe. They knew herbs that could heal or poison. They knew rituals that could influence fate. And some believed witches could manipulate the very moment a person was born. In certain regions, rumors spread that witches kept secret records of birthdays, not for celebration, but for curses. Because the birthday, the anniversary of a person's arrival into the world, was believed to be the moment when their spiritual defenses were weakest. If a curse was cast on that day, it might cling to the victim for an entire year. Parents sometimes hid their children's birth dates to prevent witches from learning them. Villagers avoided revealing birthdays to strangers. Even simple celebrations could become suspicious. Because if someone knew too much about birth charts or asked too many questions about birth times, people began to wonder why. And sometimes those suspicions turned deadly.
To the medieval mind, the universe was not empty. It was crowded. Crowded with invisible beings that moved through the air, the forests, the churches, and even the homes of ordinary people. Angels were believed to guard humanity, but demons were believed to hunt it. Medieval scholars spent centuries trying to understand these dark entities. Some of the most detailed descriptions came from theologians who studied demonology, the belief system describing the hierarchy, behavior, and purpose of demons. According to many medieval writers, demons were not mindless monsters. They were intelligent, patient, strategic. They studied humans the way hunters study prey. One of the most influential thinkers who wrote about demons was Thomas Aquinas. While Aquinas believed demons could not control human free will, he also argued that they could observe human weaknesses and exploit them. In other words, demons waited. They looked for moments when a person might be spiritually vulnerable, moments when temptation was strongest, moments when protection from divine forces might weaken. Certain days were believed to be more dangerous than others. The night before major religious holidays, moments of grief, times of pride, and among those moments, some believed the anniversary of your birth carried special spiritual significance, because the day a person was born was the moment their soul entered the world. It was the moment heaven and earth first acknowledged their existence, but it was also the moment the devil might have noticed them. Many medieval sermons warned that Satan watched the birth of every soul with interest. Every new life represented a potential victory or a potential loss in the spiritual war between heaven and hell. In that worldview, demons were believed to remember the exact moment a person was born, not because they cared about birthdays, but because they cared about souls. And if the anniversary of your birth recreated the same cosmic alignment as the original moment, then perhaps it also recreated the same spiritual vulnerability. This belief was rarely written in official church doctrine, but it appeared constantly in folklore, stories told by village priests, warnings whispered by mothers, legends shared by travelers. In these stories, the birthday was not simply the celebration of life. It was a day when invisible forces gathered closer. Some people believed demons used birthdays to test individuals. They might tempt them into pride, or anger, or sin. Others believed that demons might attempt something more direct: influence, illness, misfortune. A strange pattern appears in many medieval diaries and village records. Unexplained accidents sometimes occurred on birthdays: a child falling suddenly ill, a horse breaking its leg, a fire starting in a barn. Today, we would see these as coincidences, but to people living in a world filled with unseen spiritual forces, coincidence rarely existed. Everything had meaning, everything had a cause, and when misfortune happened near a birthday, some believed the cause might not be natural at all.
In many medieval villages, fear of curses shaped daily life. People believed words carried power, especially when spoken by someone suspected of practicing magic. A curse could supposedly damage crops, kill livestock, cause sickness, or bring terrible luck to a family. But some curses were believed to be stronger than others. One particular belief spread widely through European folklore. If a curse was spoken on a person's birthday, its power lasted an entire year. The logic behind this belief came from the same idea that surrounded astrology. A birthday marked the beginning of a new cycle in a person's life. Just as the original birth moment had shaped the soul, each new birthday began another spiritual year. So if someone placed a curse at the very beginning of that cycle, the curse would travel through the entire year. This belief created deep anxiety around birthdays. People began treating the day carefully, quietly, sometimes secretly. In small villages, celebrations were often kept private. Large public gatherings could attract attention, and attention could attract envy. Envy was dangerous in a world where people believed jealousy could lead someone to practice witchcraft. So birthdays were sometimes celebrated only within close family. Candles were lit quietly, prayers were spoken, food was shared, but the celebrations were rarely loud, because the louder the celebration, the more likely someone outside might notice. And if someone with dark intentions learned the date of your birth, they might use that knowledge against you. Parents often avoided telling strangers their children's birthdays. Some even changed the date slightly when speaking with outsiders, not because they were hiding something, but because they were protecting something, the vulnerability of their family. In an age filled with superstition, knowledge itself could become dangerous, and few pieces of knowledge were believed to be more powerful than the exact moment a person entered the world. Despite their fears, medieval families still celebrated birthdays. After all, surviving another year of life was something worth honoring. Life expectancy during the Middle Ages was uncertain. Disease, famine, and accidents claimed lives constantly. Reaching another birthday was proof that a person had survived another year in a dangerous world. But the celebration often contained hidden rituals meant to protect the birthday person. One of the most common rituals involved candles. Candles were believed to create spiritual light. Light represented divine presence. Darkness represented chaos and evil. So lighting candles around a birthday cake served more than decoration. It symbolized protection. The circle of light created a barrier, a small shield against unseen spirits. Another strange tradition involved wishes. When someone blew out their birthday candles, they were encouraged to make a wish silently. Why silently? Because some people believed speaking a wish out loud might allow demons to hear it, and if demons heard your wish, they might twist it or prevent it from coming true. By keeping the wish secret, the birthday person protected it from supernatural interference.
Another custom involved sharing the birthday cake with everyone present. This may sound simple today, but originally it carried symbolic meaning. Sharing food spread attention away from the birthday person. If one individual remained the sole focus of celebration, they might attract spiritual attention. By sharing the cake, the focus of the ritual became communal. The celebration belonged to everyone, not just the individual whose birthday it was. Many of these traditions survived long after people forgot their original purpose. Today, we still light candles, still make wishes, still share cake. But few people realize that these actions may have started as protective rituals, small acts meant to guard against forces people believed might be watching from the darkness.
By the 16th and 17th centuries, fear of witchcraft had reached terrifying levels across parts of Europe and the American colonies. Thousands of people were accused of practicing dark magic. Many were executed. The most famous wave of accusations occurred during events like the Salem witch trials. During these trials, investigators searched desperately for signs of witchcraft. They questioned neighbors, examined strange illnesses, interpreted dreams. Even everyday events could become evidence. If someone became sick near their birthday, some claimed witches had cursed them. If livestock died around a birthday celebration, people sometimes blamed supernatural influence. In a world where coincidence was rarely accepted as an explanation, almost anything could become proof of dark magic. Birthdays, already surrounded by superstition, easily became part of these accusations, and once fear reached that level, logic no longer mattered. But eventually, something began to change. The Enlightenment brought new ways of understanding the world. Science slowly replaced superstition, and birthdays slowly transformed from dangerous spiritual anniversaries into celebrations of life. But even today, some strange pieces of the old beliefs remain hidden in modern birthday traditions, and the candle still burns. Long before witch hunts and village superstitions turned birthdays into days of anxiety, there was another powerful influence shaping how people viewed the anniversary of their birth: the medieval church. To many early Christian leaders, birthdays were not innocent celebrations. They were suspicious. In fact, for centuries, many Christians refused to celebrate birthdays at all. The reason for this rejection came partly from the earliest Christian texts and traditions. When medieval scholars looked at sacred scripture, they noticed something unusual. Very few birthdays were mentioned in the Bible, and the ones that were ended in tragedy. One of the most famous examples occurred during the reign of Herod Antipas. According to the Gospel accounts, Herod held a lavish birthday feast attended by nobles, military commanders, and influential guests. During the celebration, a young dancer performed before the court. Herod, impressed by the performance, promised to grant any request the dancer made. Encouraged by her mother, she asked for something horrifying: the head of the imprisoned prophet John the Baptist. Bound by his public promise, Herod ordered the execution. The prophet was beheaded. His head was delivered on a platter to the banquet hall in the middle of a birthday celebration. To early Christians, this story carried an important lesson.
Birthday celebrations were associated with pride, excess, and dangerous promises. They were gatherings where rulers displayed wealth and power, not humble moments of gratitude. Another birthday story appeared in the book of Genesis involving the Pharaoh ruler. During his birthday feast, the Pharaoh ordered the execution of a prisoner. Once again, a birthday celebration became the setting for death. These stories deeply influenced early Christian attitudes. Church leaders began encouraging believers to avoid birthday celebrations altogether. Instead of celebrating the day a person was born, Christians focused on something very different: the day a person died. In early Christian theology, death was seen as the moment a faithful soul entered eternal life. So rather than celebrating birth into a difficult and sinful world, believers honored the day saints died. They called it the saints' heavenly birthday. This idea spread throughout Christian Europe. For centuries, people commemorated saints on the anniversaries of their deaths, but their actual birthdays were rarely remembered. As a result, birthday celebrations remained rare for ordinary people throughout much of the early medieval period. And when they did occur, they were often surrounded by caution, because both religious teachings and village folklore had planted the same idea in people's minds. The day you were born was spiritually significant, but significance could attract danger.
Despite centuries of suspicion and superstition, birthday celebrations slowly returned to European culture. This transformation did not happen quickly. It unfolded gradually over hundreds of years. During the late medieval period and the early Renaissance, attitudes toward individual identity began to change. People started placing more value on personal achievements, personal stories, and personal milestones. The anniversary of one's birth became a way to mark the passage of time. Rulers and nobles were among the first to revive birthday celebrations. Royal birthdays became political events. Grand feasts were organized. Gifts were exchanged. Public ceremonies reinforced the authority of kings and queens. Common people eventually followed these examples. By the 18th and 19th centuries, birthday celebrations had spread widely across Europe and North America. Children began receiving special attention on their birthdays. Families baked cakes. Candles were placed on top. Songs were sung. The atmosphere shifted from fear to joy. But the strange thing about cultural traditions is that they rarely disappear completely. Even as people forgot the original reasons behind certain rituals, the rituals themselves remained. Candles continued to be lit. Wishes continued to be made silently. The cake continued to be shared among everyone present. These traditions survived because they felt meaningful, even if people no longer remembered why. Yet hidden inside these simple acts were echoes of older beliefs. Beliefs that once suggested birthdays were moments when invisible forces watched the living world more closely. Moments when protection might be necessary. Moments when fate might briefly open its door. Today, birthdays feel simple. A cake sits on the table. Candles burn gently on top. Friends gather around. A song begins. Someone closes their eyes and makes a wish. Then they blow out the candles. The smoke rises softly into the air.
The room fills with laughter. But hidden inside this familiar ritual is a story that stretches back thousands of years. A story shaped by fear, superstition, religion, and humanity's deep need to understand the mysterious forces that shape life. In ancient times, the moment of birth was believed to connect a person to the stars. Astrologers studied the heavens to predict destiny. Later, medieval villagers whispered that witches could use birthdays to cast powerful curses. Demonologists warned that spirits might watch the anniversary of a soul entering the world. Church leaders discouraged celebrations entirely, fearing the pride and danger they seemed to invite. Over time, those fears faded. Science replaced superstition. Faith replaced fear. Birthdays transformed into joyful celebrations. But cultural memories have a strange way of lingering, even when we forget their origins. When you light birthday candles today, you are repeating a ritual older than modern history. When you make a silent wish, you are echoing a tradition that once protected hopes from unseen listeners. When you share the cake with everyone in the room, you are participating in a custom that may have once spread attention to keep darker forces away. Most people never think about these things, and perhaps that is for the best, because birthdays are meant to celebrate life. But the next time you see the candle flame flicker in the dark, you might remember that long ago, some people believed that on the anniversary of your birth, something unseen might be watching, waiting quietly in the shadows of history. Birthdays today feel harmless, but their origins are far stranger than most people realize. What began as ancient rituals tied to gods, stars, and spirits slowly evolved into the celebrations we know today. Yet behind the cake and candles, the shadows of those old beliefs still remain. And in our next story, we explore another forgotten mystery, a belief even darker than birthday curses, the idea that your birthday could predict the exact day you would die. Because in the world of medieval superstition, the moment you were born did not just mark the beginning of your life, it also revealed the path toward its end. Welcome to Knox Hour, where history's darkest stories are never truly forgotten.